to talk about JavaScript and data visualization, and this is the second video in our series on the Titanic Dataset. And what I'd like to do is introduce this REPL that I've created. The original video shows how to set up the tests, but those are a little hard to work with if you're having a problem or having a problem solving a problem, right? So this REPL right here kind of acts as like a little test bed for the Titanic dataset. So I'll include a link to this in the video description, okay? And what's here is an index.js file, and you can write your code here. And it imports the Titanic data from this other file right here. So all the Titanic data is here. You can kind of take a look at this if you want to see what it looks like, right? And let's give it a try. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to log the number of passengers. So that was our first problem that we needed to solve here, and it was the data length. But if you wanted to test it, you could use the this REPL as kind of a test bed. So for example, I might console log the data.length. And when I run it, you see it says 891, okay? I think this first thing right here, I forget where this is coming from. I think it's from this up here, but anyway, let's imagine now we wanted to get the first passenger. So I could say console log data, and I could use the square brackets and say which passenger I want with an index, and I provide the index of 0, right? So that gives us the first passenger here, who was Olson, Mr. Ole Martin, okay? And they did not survive. They were in third class, and they paid 7.3125 for their fare. I don't know what this is it pounds or whatever, but that's what they give us, right? And they embarked at Southampton, okay? So let's try another one. If I wanted to get the name of this passenger, what I would do is I would use data bracket 0 to get the first passenger, and then I say dot fields to get the fields for that passenger. And you can see here the passenger object looks like this, and it has a data ID, record ID, and then it has a fields property, and really all the interesting things about the passenger are in fields. So we're going to use all the data here. We're actually not going to use anything that's outside there. So once I'm in fields, then I can say dot name to get at the name, right? So I can say fields, and this is an object, and then any property in here like fare or data ID, data record. Actually, this is kind of confusing me, right? Because this is actually not part of it. This is the thing I'm looking at, right? Sorry for the confusion there, but it's like data ID, data record ID, fields, and then everything interesting is inside fields here, right? So I've got name, fare, embarked, passenger class, survived, and ticket, right? So let's give it a try. So I'll run that again, and you can see over here it says Olson, Mr. Ole Martin, okay? And if you wanted to get the fare, what would you do? So you can give that a try here on your own, and you can stop the video and test it on your own, right? Okay, so I'm going to try it here, and I'm going to use data bracket 0 fields fare, and I can see that Mr. Martin paid 7.3125. Okay, and we can follow that same procedure to get embarked, and that says where they embarked. Now, it says embarked S. We need to look this up on the data set, but I'll just tell you in my notes, actually it's all written down, that there's 3 places where the Titanic stopped to take on passengers, and it was Southampton, and I forget, there's a C, and Queenstown. I forget what the C stands for, but Chartham or something, but it's C, Q, or S are the 3 values, okay? So anyway, so let's see what sex is Mr. Martin, right? So we'll run this, and it says that he is male, okay? So that's how you're going to get at the data, right? So let's imagine that we want to do a little more interesting things with this. Like I want to count the number of people that survived, for example, right? So we saw that if we have an array, we can get the length of that array, and that'll give us the count, right? So why don't we use JavaScript's filter method to find only elements in an array that match a certain criteria, right? I'm actually going to uncomment these two lines right here, and you can see it says const survivors equals data.filter. And filter is I'm going to make this a little bit wider here so we can kind of see the whole thing, right? So filter is a method that you call on an array, and you provide a callback function. So I've written this function here as an arrow function, so it's kind of abbreviated, but this is actually a whole function right here, okay? And the function takes in one passenger that I've named as P, and then it returns either true or false, right? And when it returns true, then that passenger is included in the filtered list. Okay, so filter is actually going to return a new list to us, which I've named survivors here. And if this, for each passenger, if this filter function here returns a true, then that passenger is included in the survivors array. Okay? If this function right here returns a false, then that passenger is not included in the survivors array. So what's happening here with the filter function? Well, for each passenger in data, that passenger gets assigned to this variable P, okay? So P for passenger, right? And then this function is going to return survived equals yes. So if the value of survived is yes, then this statement is true, and that passenger is included in survivors. If this statement right here is false, then this passenger P is not included in the survivors, okay? So let's give it a try. So if I filter all of the passengers, and I want to find all the passengers where their survived property is yes, then the survivors length, or the length of this array, will tell me the number of passengers that survived, right? So I'm going to run the code again. And you can see it says 342 passengers survived out of the total of 891. Okay, so let's leave that for you. And then your challenge here would be to try and find the number of passengers that did not survive. So for passengers, the survive property is either uppercase yes or uppercase no. Right? Let me do survived. Values, maybe I'll put this here. Values is yes or no. Okay, so you can give that a try on your own and then come back to the video. And if you kind of get how this works, you can just continue on with the homework. But if you have more questions, you can follow the video.